Live.
Crimson and Blue Chips family, welcome in, welcome in. It is a Thursday here in the CABC headquarters. Quite frigid outside. There was actually snow on the car in Birmingham, Alabama. And as you can see, I'm not going outside today, being from Miami. Tomorrow I'll be outside, but not today. So we wanted to get you a podcast, a fresh podcast, one because we haven't thus far this week, and much to the dismay of Nick Saban, we are overlooking the Citadel. So we thought we didn't have to come on multiple times, and really today we're not going to spend much time on Kev. Are they the Bulldogs?
They
Citadel
are the
Bulldogs.
they are the Bulldogs.
We're not going to spend much time on the Bulldogs today, and as you can tell, I haven't done much prep on those Citadel Bulldogs, who are more than a 50-point underdog to Alabama, 48 hours from this very moment, actually, as it is 11 a.m. Central Time. So we're not going to spend a bunch of time there. We're still going to do recruiting. That's really where we want to focus. The dust has settled on this past weekend, where Alabama had a bunch of top targets in town. There have been dominoes falling elsewhere, particularly at the running back position. And running back's a topic we're going to talk a lot about on today's program. So recruiting heavy edition of Crimson and Blue Chips. As you can already tell, producer Kev is alongside. He will give you the Citadel knowledge later in the show. Of course, we'll have Q&A to take us home, but we are getting going, of course, on the recruiting front. Kev, let's jump in here. What do you got? Where do we want to start today as we kick off the Crimson Tide discussion?
I figured, we would start off with some of the visitors from this past weekend, and we'll start off with DeAndre Glass, who's a running back out of Texas. We haven't talked about him maybe at all on the show, and with him taking an official visit and the running back position is still kind of up in the air for the Tide, I figured we would learn some more about the young man from Katy High School in Texas.
Yeah, named Alabama his leader.
Yes.
That's a big deal coming out of the weekend. He told that to Hank South of 24/7 Sports. Of course, you heard Hank right here on the podcast last week, and kind of didn't see it coming. I'd be lying if I said that was going to happen. So it tells you much more about the running back position. There are more things in play than maybe we thought even a week or two ago. Glass isn't a new prospect on the board for Alabama. Everyone kind of views it as Trey Sanders and then everybody else. He's been a part of that everybody else from the beginning, along with Tyrion Davis, Jerry and Ely, and others. But it just seems like these running backs are breaking more news. It's the week of the running back, I guess. John Emery pops to LSU on Tuesday. And then on Wednesday, Kenny McIntosh picks University of Georgia, who had previously lost John Emery. So there are dominoes that affect Trey Sanders, Glass, and a lot of other prospects in the Southeast as schools look to fill out that running back position. So Glass is worth a second look in general, but definitely for this Alabama podcast, as he is fresh off the visit and again fresh off of naming Alabama number one for his services, which because we don't think Bama will take two more running backs. They've got one committed in Keelan Robinson. We all know Trey Sanders is atop the board and visiting for the Iron Bowl to Saturday. So where does DeAndre Glass fit into the? I think the best way to do it is to look at the kid, take an objective and fresh and extended look at one of the best running backs in the country, and certainly the best running back that we really hadn't talked much about here on Crimson and Blue Chips. So, Kev, I think you got some video queued up. Should we take a closer look?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, technology magic here. As Kev pulls up DeAndre Glass's senior video. I think he had, 1,600 yards through the midway point.
Yeah, the halfway point. He had 1,600 yards and I believe 25 touchdowns. He's been named a Gatorade Player of the Year nominee for the state of Texas. He plays at Katy High School, which is, if you know anything about Texas football, it's a pretty dominant school in the state of Texas. So we're talking Texas football, so we're not talking slouches that he's playing against either. So without further ado, here's some Mr. Glass.
and caution, hadn't really seen much of this to this point, Kev. I believe the camera's still on me if you want to switch that on over to Glass there. Again, Katy, Texas. So big time high school football. This isn't a middle of nowhere kid. This isn't even Josh Jacobs in Tulsa, Oklahoma, right? This is a kid playing ball in Texas at a fairly high level, who's always been highly rated. It's not like he's a sleeper or anything like that. This is not the Josh Jacobs conversation, but
we're good now.
Again, yeah, looks
Okay.
good.
All right.
Looks good there.
So run a little counter action, and then you see his ball. You see his vision skills as he hits multiple cutbacks here. So it looks like it's supposed to hit kind of this way, but he cuts back and finds another running lane, and then gets outside and just kind of outruns and breaks tackles.
Yeah, right off the bat, you like the forward lean. You see that he's a thick lower body kid, so you're expecting balanced body control, and he shakes off a late tackler trying to go low there with an arm tackle. Blue chip running backs, Alabama type running backs, should be unable to be brought down by arm tackles, especially downfield, especially by secondary players. So Glass definitely checks that box. Really like the lean this kid runs with. You see he's kind of a one-cut guy. I don't think he's one who's going to be incredibly elusive in the open field, but you like the decisiveness there as well.
The ability to – I mean, he finds a very small window here and makes that cut and gets outside for a lot of room. So you see the ball, you see the vision skills that he has. I mean, he's finding small seams and making big plays out of these small seams, and then the ability to get outside. Okay, off of topic of the running back, if you're gonna run the power or the toss power where the quarterback's the lead, like at least get the quarterback up in there. Like, come on now, he doesn't touch a soul.
Man was window shopping.
Yeah, and then he could have had one there, but nah. So, but no, I mean, you see his ability to get outside and run outside as well as run inside. So, I think that's pretty good for him. The vision. I like the vision. I like his lean. He runs behind his pads very well, and he's not brought down by arm tackles. There you see three guys making tackle. And definitely has some thickness to him.
Yeah, like I'm curious what he's listed as. He's very patient. There's no doubt about it. He lets the blockers get out in front to create the lane and get in space. But again, the decisiveness is what's really sticking out. The more we see of him, just not a lot of nonsense. Which when you're an elite athlete playing against guys who are not quite there and not quite on your level, you want to see that. You don't want to see a whole lot of fooling around, even though these guys can, but you don't see a whole lot of reversing of the field and east and west stuff. Very decisive, north and south, one cut and go, vision, balance, body control, kind of the essential classic running back traits, and better speed in the open field than probably I expected. More of a burst than a top speed guy, but certainly not slow. And we've seen Alabama thrive with guys in that mold, obviously over the entire course of the Nick Saban tenure and even before the Nick Saban tenure in Tuscaloosa. So you can see why Alabama likes him. I'd like to see a little bit more out of the backfield. I don't know, Katie's system, it looks like it's a classic type of system, I formation. Not a whole lot of razzle dazzle, but I'd like to see a little bit more ability out of the backfield. What are his hands looking like? Can he set up a defender in space, which has become such a critical part of running back evaluations in this current era? But when it comes to running the football, getting downhill, playing behind his pads, you see those things from Glass. Not a burner, but quicker than fast, and he can get to whatever his top speed is. Seems like he can get there pretty quickly.
Yeah. All right, so I think that was DeAndre Glass out of Katy High School. He was there this past weekend on an official visit. So kind of final final thoughts on him is he's definitely a very good running back that could help out the Tide. I think with him naming them as leader, that's a big thing, and so we'll see where his recruitment goes moving forward. See where Trey Sanders lands, see where this kid lands, and I think that'll be where Alabama's running backs, because I don't think they're going to take as many as they have right now. So,
Yeah, there's a running back situation brewing all over the country in the South, and there's kind of a sleeper who's putting a dent in some of these things. I was actually DMing with the kid today. His name's DJ Williams. He's from Sebring, Florida. He's an Appalachian State commitment, but in his last week or so, Texas, Auburn, Ole Miss have all offered him a scholarship. Alabama, according to Hank South, is set to see this man play football, or to see him, excuse me. Their season is over on Friday, and we threw out the Josh Jacobs name earlier. Well, this applies a little bit more to this kid, not only in how he is a late bloomer, he was injured as a junior, but the kid plays quarterback. The kid is just the best athlete at his high school, so he's having to do a lot of this from the quarterback position, and sometimes that can delay that evaluation because you wonder where the kid can actually line up. We're not able to see receiving skills. We're not able to see the full arsenal because he's playing quarterback, but when he runs the football, you can see why he's become such a late bloomer on the recruiting trail. So Appalachian State will have their hands full in trying to hold on to him. Alabama has not yet offered, but as we talk about running backs more and more, Kev, it's becoming very clear that it's not just about Trey Sanders, and I think that's probably the focus of today's show. Really, when we talk not just about Trey Sanders. And we obviously know that visit is coming up and he's deciding in the next couple of weeks, but Alabama is preparing itself potentially beyond the number one running back in America. And that's interesting, obviously, no matter how you look at it, whether it's on the depth of the board, the strength of the running back position in this cycle, which is something that maybe we undersold months ago. There's more guys popping up, and also just the running back dominoes that have fallen. I think everybody who's in search for another back has kind of been put on notice by the surprises of John Emery decommitting from Georgia, ending up at LSU. Even that wasn't expected that day. Kenny McIntosh picking Georgia over hometown Miami, over Auburn. So now that pushes Noah Cain to the top of the board for a lot of schools. What about Mark Anthony Richards, another South Floridian? And now this kid, DJ Williams, in the state of Florida, and Trey's from Florida. So the state of Florida will literally occupy most of the running back dominoes the rest of the way. So it's just a matter of which one ends up where. If you're Texas, if you're LSU, you got to feel much better if you're Texas or Auburn, you got to feel much better about Noah Cain, because LSU, you would think, isn't going to take three backs in this class. And now the schools up north are going to try to benefit. Ohio State, Penn State, looking for running backs in the South, as they often do. Can they swoop in and pull one of these guys away from an SEC or ACC school? So it'll be fascinating down the stretch. We usually talk about quarterback dominoes, but running back dominoes in this class of 2019 kind of heating up here over the last couple of days. So DeAndre Glass, DJ Williams, big names to know, in addition to, of course, the former Alabama commitment, Trey Sanders. Kev, let's move to some other visitors who were on campus. What position we want to go to?
Well, just real quick, the DJ Williams, the Appalachian State commit, was at Georgia for Georgia Auburn. Don't know if it was an official, but I know he was there.
His season over. He's about to be a very busy recruit.
Yeah, he was there. He was there for the Georgia Auburn game. So we can go.
There's a lot of Floridians there, man.
There was a lot of that.
Tyreek Stevenson, Kyer Elam was there. McIntosh was there. He obviously committed. Georgia's doing some things in South Florida, man. I know a lot of people will be like, well, Kirby's just following Nick's lead, but Georgia's always been impactful in South Florida with Sony Michel, Isaiah McKenzie, Riley Ridley. They've done well in South Florida for quite a while, and that doesn't look like it's slowing down anytime soon. They're going to take one of those DBs from South Florida. It might be Stevenson, but they're going to take one of these guys away from the big three in the state of Florida, which, again, speaks to just how weird it's been in that state.
Yeah.
because these many Miami guys weren't leaving, and it's like they're all leaving at this point. So a lot of drama down there as per usual. But Georgia is going to be one of these teams that benefits. We always think of Alabama, Ohio State as schools that go down there and pluck kids, but Georgia has very much joined that conversation. Heck, they got Tyson Campbell last year too. So Georgia's been doing this. It's time for us to kind of recognize it a little bit more.
Definitely, and that Georgia Auburn game had a pretty good visitor list. I mean,
best in the country.
There were some big names there. I mean, Georgia had Owen Popo there, the Auburn commit, as a Georgia recruit.
Clay Webb
was there.
George
Pickens was there.
Nakobe Dean, maybe.
Nakobe Dean was there. That list was very impressive.
Wanye Morris, Nolan Smith. I mean,
Yep.
You're talking 5-star, 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 and the Georgia players were telling recruits. Found this out yesterday. They were telling recruits that it was kind of the wildest game atmosphere of this season. They were saying that Georgia Auburn is the South's oldest rivalry, and it still means a ton to both fan bases, and the Georgia players were telling recruits that you could kind of feel that this time around. So I thought that was interesting as well. And then they put a beat down on Auburn in the second half as well. So I think all of that certainly helps, and they did it with power running. DeAndre Swift went wild. So I mean, could you blame Kenny McIntosh for saying, "Sorry, Mark Richt, going to your old school"?
Yeah, I mean, it was a pretty good beatdown. Moving forward with people that were on campus in Tuscaloosa, obviously we had Jordan Battle was on campus.
Monster.
Who is a big name moving forward for Alabama right now. They're trying to flip him from Ohio State, and with what's going on in Columbus right now, who knows where that? I mean, Ohio State. They, I think there was good things that came out, good things from his dad that came out of the visit. I think I think Alabama has become a potential threat to his commitment. I think they have a good chance at pulling a flip with this kid. What do you think about with Battle and his commitment to Ohio State and the possibility of the Alabama flip?
It's all about Urban Meyer here to me, and we all have heard the scuttlebutt. We've all kind of seen it. This thing is moving in a certain direction, and it really doesn't appear to be slowing down at all. And it's like the Buckeyes keep winning, but the conversation has not yet shifted. And I think that's in this business, that's a pretty big flag that, hey, this thing is moving. This thing is very, very possible that Urban isn't there. That is the most popular notion, and there really hasn't been much out there to go the other way. I mean, look at Auburn and the lengths that Auburn has gone to say, hey, Gus will be our coach in 2019. You haven't seen none of that from Ohio State. You haven't even heard a flicker of that. Urban hasn't addressed it. The AD hasn't addressed it. And this is separate from the Brett McMurphy stuff, by the way, which has been a fiasco. This is completely separate from that. You really haven't heard any votes of confidence or assurances from anybody in Columbus that Urban will be there. And then you look at their schedule, Michigan is probably going to be favoring that game. If that goes down the way that I would expect it to, at least at this point, I think you will really hear that momentum pick up. And Jordan Battle's a kid who is tied to Urban. That's the guy he wants to play for. But the family has come out and said, look, it's not a guarantee. So the door is slightly cracked. And when the door is slightly cracked and Alabama's involved, you guys know what happens. Bama goes all the way involved. They got him on campus for an official visit. His dad went with him. His dad's a very big part of the recruiting process for Jordan, and Bama's been flirting with him a lot more in the last couple of months. And it's basically to the point where if he doesn't follow through with Ohio State, it's going to be Alabama. And this isn't a homer perspective. This isn't, he's on the visit high perspective. This is coming from everywhere you look. Ohio State writers are hearing this. Ohio State sources are corresponding this, and of course Tuscaloosa sources are as well. with the South Floridian, another South Florida guy, by the way. This is something that has legs. This is not a witch hunt. This is not anything that's a shot in the dark or anything like that. This has legitimate momentum for Alabama at this point. So we'll see. Obviously, that situation is one that we're not going to get the end result of over the next couple of weeks. We don't think. But I'm very curious to see where that momentum is today versus right after that Ohio State-Michigan game, because I think that will be a big swing one way or the other for Urban Meyer, for the future, for that conversation surrounding his employment, and obviously the recruitment of Jordan Battle. It might be that simple. If Urban's there, he sticks. If Urban's not there, he flips to Alabama. But at this point, I do think it is between these two teams, and pretty much only between these two teams. Miami got him on campus. Oklahoma got him on campus. Georgia, LSU, others have tried, but it seems like even if he takes some additional trips, this is an Urban Saban battle, and it could be a very simple battle, but at a minimum, we know he's a big priority for Alabama. He wants to play corner. He is a safety right now. He can probably do both. I think he's more of a safety at the next level with his range and ability. So this thing has a lot of momentum, Kev. It's got a lot of legs. And I think we're going to get some clarity pretty soon, at least from the Ohio State side of things. And again, I'm kind of shocked that we haven't heard, hey, Urban will be here. Or at least I haven't heard that yet. I don't know if maybe it's being said right now, but I haven't heard that yet. And that's surprising to me.
Yeah. With him, I mean, it is a weird situation. And like you said, there is the ties are specifically with Urban, with Battle. So I think that, moving forward, it's going to, and if I'm not mistaken, Battle's an early enrollee, correct? He plans to early enroll?
No. I think so, but I'm not 100% sure. But if that's the case, that means he's signing December 19th.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. So it's going to be quick that we find out about this, the decision with him.
Most St. Thomas kids are. But.
Yeah, and the next thing moving forward is Alabama has a commitment from his teammate in the defensive lineman Brandon Ingram. Sorry, so you got to think maybe see if that
doesn't hurt.
Doesn't hurt to have a teammate on board there, and then also from the weekend, Nathan Pickering on campus.
Yeah, I don't see the Jordan Battle EE info on his profile right now, but we'll double check on that. There's a lot of profiles; they're not all updated, so that's on us. But yeah, Pickering was on campus. I mean, this one is it could be simple. Is he trolling or is he not?
That's what I want to know. I mean, is my man there as a troll, or is he seriously considering, flipping to Alabama? I mean, here we are. I think this is his second game he's been to this year.
Yeah,
in Tuscaloosa.
Neither on official visits either, so that could potentially mean one more visit. So
so I mean, he hasn't used the official, so he's been there on his dime, and obviously they're playing Mississippi State, the school he's committed to. So that's where it comes in, man. Is this kid trolling or is this kid serious? I don't know what to make of it. He's another one of those kids where you're just kind of, it doesn't, you can't get a beat on. John, have you heard anything about, was it a troll? Was he seriously considering Alabama? What kind of buzz is coming from that?
I mean, his camp has said that Alabama is the top threat, but it hasn't been as plain and blatant as it has come from the Jordan Battle camp. It hasn't been that simple. And I think part of it maybe comes from Alabama's side. We talked about running back and how it's getting kind of complicated. There's more names popping up. There's drama at that position. I think defensive line's in that same boat. I think the secondary is in that boat. It's not like, let's say, linebacker, where it's pretty much Nakobe Dean, Henry To'o. That's it. Pretty simple, pretty black and white. But with defensive line, it's not like that. How many spots are even left? We don't know. Remember, Bama's trying to hang on to Justin Eboigbe. They've got DJ Dale committed, Antonio Alfano committed, Byron Young committed. You mentioned Braylon Ingram a second ago. These are all hand in the dirt guys. And you've got a couple of Jack linebackers who could potentially end up with their hand in the ground as well. And we all know Ishmael Sopsher still uncommitted. He's not committing until February. So what kind of wrinkle does that put in? What about Texas A&M commitment to Marvin Leal? What about some of these other defensive linemen, the kid out in Arizona, Robinson? There's a lot more defensive linemen that we're talking about in this conversation. It's not like linebacker where it's black and white, or even wide receiver. It's kind of like George Pickens or nothing at this point at wide receiver. So some of these positions are deeper than we think. So I wonder, from Alabama's perspective, how hard they are pushing. Is Pickering number 2 on the board behind Sopsher? Could he possibly be 3? Is Leal higher on the board? What about these other guys? So I think that complicates things a little bit as well. Now, it doesn't mean that Bama wouldn't accept his commitment. I'm not hinting at anything like that. But it's tough to navigate this with so few spots remaining. But the visits do speak for themselves. That's 2, as you said there, Kev. And I do think if the official visit materializes, which to my understanding is still on the table, I think that will be the clearest indication. It's kind of like with Jeff Carter, the corner who is committed to A&M right now, who was on campus as well this past weekend. Let me know if and when that official happens. And I think that's kind of when we'll know things are incredibly serious, because it's one thing to, I mean, look, the kid's from Mississippi. Where he's from in seminary to Tuscaloosa is a hop, skip, and a jump. This is not anything that is. It doesn't even cost you the whole day. Some of these kids who make these visits, it's a whole day gone. It's not the case for Nathan Pickering. So I think that's part of the conversation surrounding him. And we all saw the tweets, right? Going into it, he was saying, Hail State's going to shock the world, and he was watching Alabama take on the school he is committed to. And he's been very public about wanting to put on for the state, but he's also been very public at the same time about wanting to do his due diligence. So it does seem like Alabama is really the only other threat at this point. Florida's been tossed out a little bit. LSU's, he is long liked, but the Mississippi State battle. But just the way he's conducted himself and the way that he has been wanting seemingly to go against the trend, it does make me think that he's much more serious about Mississippi State at this time, and I'd be a little surprised if he flipped. But if and when that official is set up, kind of like Jeffrey Carter, kind of like, let's talk at that point. I think that's where we're at with covering Nathan Pickering. But again, there's a lot of good D linemen out there. There's no shortage of great D linemen in this class. It's like the NFL draft is a D line dominant draft. I think this class has become a very front seven oriented class with hand in the dirt guys and edge players, and Pickering is among the 10 or 12 best, regardless of position. So I think that alone means Alabama's going to be in it all the way to the end, and he's an interior guy as well, and that's really what Alabama needs here at the end. They need a Pickering or Sopsher or a Neal or a Leal, excuse me. They need a Neal too, but they need a Leal on the offensive side of the ball, on the defensive side of the ball. Jesus. To play on the interior, because that's where a lot of beef will be departed following this 2018 season. So
definitely, I think with like Sopsher deciding in February throws a huge wrench into it. I mean, now because you're thinking if you have a legitimate shot at Sopsher, is Pickering, do you take him? There's a whole bunch of things going on with that. I think Sopsher is obviously the number 1 on the board for interior, and rightfully so.
And that's the wrinkle, man. He's a February guy. Him and Pickens.
I gotta say, just like George Pickens.
That's in this climate, everything's about this December 19th early signing period, and those guys have no chance of doing it. So I think that's where it gets really tough when the numbers are tight. And that's where I think Pickens on one end, you could see him not being in the class because of that simple fact, but you can't see that on the Sopsher side of it.
Yeah.
So how Alabama navigates it, how Coach Cool and Pete Golding and Tosh Lupoy navigate those numbers will be a freaking chemistry set that I don't understand. And that's the case for Alabama every year, right? But this year with such a priority at that position, I think inside linebacker is the number 1 need, and I think it's the whole D line thereafter in this class. So with those being such big needs, I don't know how they're going to navigate that situation. But at those other positions, you're going to know sooner. You're going to know if Nakobe Dean is in or not in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Same thing with To'o. You're not going to know with Sopsher, and he really gets the ball rolling at that conversation. At least, luckily for Bama, it's not Sopsher and Nakobe Dean, who are both February guys. That would be a log jam because those are probably the two most important defensive recruits left. So we will know something with Nakobe Dean soon, and I think that'll make the process a little bit easier in rounding out the numbers. But I don't think it's easy no matter what happens on the D line, and that's even after the decommitment of Rashad Cheney, which was something that a lot of people expected. It's still not that simple. Like, oh well, one kid's gone, so it's one more spot available. Like, not that
No,
simple. So Pickering is an interesting piece of that puzzle. We don't know exactly how high or where he fits, but he's still definitely on the board. He's still definitely a puzzle piece to be placed somewhere.
Yeah, definitely. And like you said, when we're talking about inside linebacker, that's definitely number one on the list. And you got Nakobe Dean and you got Henry Toa. But there was Toa was in Knoxville this past weekend, at Tennessee, and obviously we don't hear as much from out of him because he's a California guy. We don't we're in the South and we don't really hear that much about these guys. I mean, have you heard anything as far as, obviously what I've heard is Bama, but obviously, he was at Tennessee this past weekend. He took an official to Washington a couple weeks ago. What's kind of, have you heard anything about him, or what's his deal?
Well, if there's one position you worry about when Jeremy Pruitt's involved, it's linebacker. I mean,
Yeah.
J.J. Peterson last year was at Bama lean forever and ended up in Pruitt's class at UT. Quay Walker was a Bama commitment, and Pruitt was a threat to flip him before he ended up staying in state at Georgia. One of the best linebackers the last few years, by the way. Expect him to play pretty soon at UGA. But, yeah. And it's interesting, dudes on campus. Like, it's not a surprise to Bama people or Florida State people or Georgia people, since Pruitt has recruited well at many schools recently. But, man, they got a Boygby on campus this past weekend. They're a threat for Owen Popo, which Auburn fans will love to hear that. George Pickens even says he might visit there on Saturday. I mean, Tennessee is putting together a late run here, and they're going to spoil some things for some people. But I don't think those people include Alabama this year. I don't think they're a legitimate threat to a Boygby. I don't think they're a legitimate threat to To'o. I get the sense with him, talking to our guys out west, that it really is I stay out west or I go to Bama. Kind of almost like a Tua Tagovailoa situation back in the day. It seems pretty simple there. Cameron Latu was in that boat last year. Stay out west or go to Bama.
Seems to be a trend here.
Yeah, I mean, it's the Lupoi, the Lupoi special. And if there's a position where you feel extra confident with Tosh, it's linebacker. That was the first phone call Dylan Moses made. That was the first phone call Najee Harris made. I mean, when you go outside of the region, you want guys like Mike Loxley in DC, Tosh Lupoi in Cali / the West Coast, and there's nobody as familiar with that area, with De La Salle, than a guy like Tosh Lupoi. Heck, that was the first way that Bama got in contact with Tua's camp, was through Tosh. So there's a security blanket that has been created there with him. And I think he's gotten maybe a little less buzz because he is now the defensive coordinator. But I think come signing day, I think you'll see a lot of Tosh influence in this class. And with the uncertainty around Nakobe Dean, even though there's a little bit more Bama buzz following his Georgia visit, which I think is potentially telling in his recruitment. Even with that, Toto is a monster piece in this class for Alabama, because when it comes to inside linebacker, at this point, it really is one or the other. And maybe there's a scenario where it's both. If you don't take a second receiver or a second tight end, do you use that spot for another interior linebacker? That's very possible. So I think those guys will be very interesting recruits. I think Bama will finish no worse than second for each guy, Nakobe Dean as well as To'o. I just couldn't tell you where Nakobe Dean is going to go at this point, and I don't think Nakobe could, even though, again, strange positive buzz for Alabama following a Georgia visit for Nakobe Dean. So those couple of trips he's taken since his official visit to Tuscaloosa were seemingly bigger than we thought. So we'll see if Bama can get him back on campus for the Iron Bowl, which I would assume is a strong possibility at this point. That will be the strongest visitor list any school has this entire cycle, in my opinion. And I think Nakobe Dean at this point, that's where you would expect him to be a couple of Saturdays from now. But Toto will be interesting. I don't think Tennessee's a legitimate threat, but they did get him on campus, and that's kind of the late flex of Jeremy Pruitt. And I think it's something we're going to continue to see the rest of the way. They're going to spoil it for Auburn or Georgia, maybe even Alabama. They're going to spoil it for another SEC school, Florida, at some point with a couple of guys late in the cycle. So we'll see if they could bring it all the way to the West Coast. I don't think they can, but I wouldn't put it past them.
Awesome. I think they do. I think they do spoil it, and it's going to be fun to watch.
I mean, Wanya Morris is damn solid to Tennessee.
He was at Georgia.
Yeah, I think if he goes anywhere else, it'll be Georgia. But I think if Popo goes anywhere else, I think Tennessee might be more likely than Georgia for him, which would be another 5-star linebacker that they grab, which is just crazy. But Popo's a kid who's been to all these schools a million times since he's been so popular since he was in 8th grade, and Tennessee is one that he liked even before Pruitt got there. So keep that in mind as well.
All right. So moving forward into some more recruiting talk. I know that you've been on the road and you've been in Alabama this week. You had a chance to catch up with some guys. You caught up with Mr. Pickens. How'd that go? How'd it go with Mr. Pickens there at Hoover?
Well, he's coming off of an illness, for those wondering about his physical state ahead of tomorrow's matchup with Mountain Brook. He said that's the reason why he hasn't been picking up the phone, which he's lying. That's fine. He's not he might be a diva on the field, but he's actually a great kid. He's a fun kid to be around. Spoke to him at length last night after Hoover went through a walkthrough ahead of their playoff matchup with Mountain Brook. And, a lot of schools were brought up, and I didn't bring up really any of them. So I think just that bit of information tells you that Auburn should probably be worried about this recruitment. They probably have been for a while. But I think the combination of their season with their recruitment of elite prospects in general lately should have them worried. Auburn would be a shocker if Auburn got Nakobe Dean. It would be a shocker if they got Clay Webb at this point. Some people will tell you it would be a shocker if they keep Owen Popo. So the lack of strength and buzz with Auburn right now should worry them about retaining commitments, including George Pickens. I think 100% that's a worry. But Auburn was first for him, and he says there's a certain loyalty there. But he also says that he's not done. He also says that he's got more visits to take. He also says that a final decision won't come until after the new year. So that's never good if you're committed to a school. So I think Auburn has reason to be worried. He hasn't been there a ton this year either. He was at Georgia last weekend, as we said. Florida State has hosted him. Alabama has hosted him. LSU has hosted him. He's seen Bama play a couple of times this year. And again, when you talk about the Iron Bowl, pretty sure George Pickens will be there. And this is before we even get into the official visit conversation. So Alabama, Georgia, FSU, LSU, those are the schools that I could see him taking official visits to. The good thing with Georgia is that we did kind of get past the out-of-region conversation because there was some Oregon buzz at one point. There was some Michigan buzz at one point. That looks to be kind of behind him. He's made it very clear to me recently that his family is going to play a big part in this decision, which usually tells you, hey, I'm not going to stray too far away from home. So you think of the schools, not too far from Birmingham, and that's why Florida State feels a little bit better than maybe other people would think. That's why Alabama is in this conversation more and more as time goes on. But then there's Georgia. We've long talked about the relationship between he and Jaden Hazelwood. The interesting thing is that we know he's not going to Auburn, talking about Hazelwood. So you would think that could potentially be a way to reel Pickens back in, but there's building conversation that Hazelwood may not end up back at Georgia either. So both of these guys might not end up at the schools that they originally committed to. And there's a scenario where Pickens could end up replacing Hazelwood on UGA's commitment list. And, according to Pickens, that's become a part of the conversation. Hey, we lost a big time receiver and we think you're a big time receiver. Sometimes it's very, very simple in recruiting. He's been tight with Kirby Smart for quite some time. Obviously got to do that again. And he kind of admitted, hey, Georgia was on me early, then they weren't, and now they're back on heavy. So I think Georgia coming off of that visit is going to be pretty interesting. He's watching these offenses. We talked about that with Hazelwood, but Pickens is watching these offenses as well, and he wants to play for an explosive attack. And I think that's what has kept Georgia in the conversation and faded Auburn a little bit. And then obviously that's gotten Bama into the conversation. I mean, he lit up talking about Tua, lit up talking about him, which is not rare in today's day and age of recruiting coverage. When you're talking about wide receivers, they want to play with somebody like that. Not a big surprise. We've seen that forever in college football. But he said no disrespect to the previous quarterbacks, including Hoover's own John Parker Wilson, who he did mention by name. But Tua's a different guy for them, and he's very much kept notice of that. So we'll see if he gets back to Tuscaloosa for a trip. But this thing's got a long way to go, Kev, and I think that's what should fear Auburn. The fact that we know a final decision is coming late should fear Auburn. A family input, regional input should probably throw some fear in Auburn as well. And I think there's a lot of conceptions around George in terms of who's in his camp, who's in his year. He said Bo Nix really isn't in his year right now. Bo Nix is on a playoff run. Bo Nix is trying to win Mr. Football. Bo Nix is trying to win back-to-back state championships. And if you don't know Bo, the kid is a focused kid. He does not talk recruiting after a football game. He really doesn't. His dad doesn't either. Even though he's like the most solid kid to Auburn in this class, and there's really not any information there, he still doesn't want to talk about it after games. And this is win or lose, by the way, because we've been there for both for Bo this year. So that kind of locked in laser focus is translating to how he handles other guys on that Auburn commitment list as well. He's still the leader of the class, and he's still involved, especially on Saturdays when he's on campus. But what did we just say? Pickens hadn't really been there a ton this year. And this coming Saturday, he says he'll either be at Auburn for the Liberty game, shout out to Buckshot, but he also might go to Tennessee, which is new to the conversation with him. So a lot of schools involved. He met Odell Beckham when he was at LSU. Really liked that. He kind of likes the atmosphere. Him and Odell Beckham are like the perfect connection.
I was going to say that's like a match made in heaven right there.
Yeah, like we first got to know Pickens because we were just told about these crazy one-handed catches, and he meets Odell Beckham a few weeks later. That's a heck of a connection. He said, "Hey, I was surprised, man. He's pretty short." So the confidence is only increasing with George Pickens in his own ability. He pretty much towered over Odell. So there's a lot going on with Pickens' recruitment, and I think this is all before official visits, and that's what tells you there's a long way to go here with Pickens' recruitment. I think Alabama and Georgia are probably the top threats, but LSU's in it, Florida State's in it. And heck, if he visits Tennessee on Saturday, Tennessee might be in it. He's close to a lot of kids from the state of Georgia. He played on the Cam Newton 7-on-7 team. He knows Popo very well. He knows Wanye Morris. He knows a lot of these guys. Jaden Hazelwood, as we mentioned. So we'll see. They're not going to go to the same school. I still feel good about that. And Jaden Hazelwood's visiting Florida State this weekend, by the way. So all these, we talk about running back dominoes. There's a receiver domino going down with really the only two elite options remaining with Hazelwood and Pickens in a weak receiver class. So in the Southeast, the ball is really in Hazelwood's court and then Pickens thereafter. But it doesn't look like either guy is ready to make that final decision, and that's going to piss a lot of schools off and make these dominoes extend a little bit longer than maybe all of them would want. Could that cost one of these guys a spot somewhere? That's going to be a part of the conversation from the Alabama side. There's been a lot of mystery as to how much Alabama has pushed for Pickens at different points, right? They took forever to offer. He was banged up at the camp 2 years ago and didn't have that George Pickens effort that a lot of other schools saw and offered immediately. That didn't happen with Bama. There's been talk that, his academic situation is going to push some schools out, which I don't think is the case. These schools and these kids can figure it out. Remember, he's not an early grad, so he does have some time in that second semester to finish strong academically. But you do wonder, there's been a lot of mixed reaction with the George Pickens to Alabama conversation, but Bama is still very much in it. He says LSU is pushing the most right now. So you can make a legitimate case for 3, 4, 5 schools for Pickens. And the scary part for Auburn is that you can make some other cases easier than you can with the Auburn Tigers right now. So I think for Auburn, very critical to get them on campus this Saturday against Liberty, a game you should win, a game you should put up a lot of points, a game that you should showcase your young receiver, Seth Williams, who is similar to Pickens in size and skill set, another guy that George knows pretty well. So I think where he goes Saturday could be pretty telling. I think if he takes the trip to Tennessee, I think it tells you maybe what you need to know about how strong he is to Auburn. But he did say multiple times that he is still very much committed to the Auburn Tigers. Doesn't want to be taken off the commitment list or anything like that. He's still an Auburn Tiger as far as he's concerned, but that decision is not finalized 100%, basically, no matter how you look at it.
He's an interesting one, to say the least. So we'll move forward, and I know that you'll be, well, I'm not 100%. You're staying in the state of Alabama, correct?
Yeah, man. There's another 4-star that has dominated the conversation around my job lately. Should probably go see him play. So we'll be at the rematch.
So you'll be attending, and if you don't know the rematch, you'll be attending the Hewitt Trustful Thompson game, Talia versus Paul Tyson, part 2. We saw the first one on national TV, and
over 100 points scored. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, and one of the better high school games that they've shown this year. So you're gonna get a chance to see Talia. What exactly, as far as for this game? I know it's a big game for both teams, and you got both Alabama commits. I mean, what out of this are you looking for from both of the quarterbacks as far as their performance in this game?
Well, the weather is terrible. So
yeah, didn't you wake up with some snow that had fallen?
Snow in the car. I was like, what month is it, man? What are we doing here?
Like you leave Florida and go to.
I left Florida in shorts and flip flops on Monday. Like literally left in shorts and flip flops. People at the gas station were looking at me like I was crazy. And now I know why, because it's been freezing up here in Alabama, and that's going to affect the game. Obviously, it's a Friday night game. It's supposed to warm up a little bit, but it's still supposed to be in the 50s at best at kickoff, which means as the game progresses, especially at the rate of which these teams score, those games typically last a little bit longer. So fourth quarter, where you expect this game to be won and on the line, you might be in the high 30s, low 40s with these two quarterbacks. So what I think Hewitt needs to do is have a lead, because if you just look at the raw traits, Talia's got the more powerful arm that can be sustained in cold.
They had a lead last time,
and potentially the wind. Yeah, I know, but it wasn't cold. It was cold, but it wasn't freezing.
It wasn't freezing. Yeah.
So Thompson's best and most consistent receiver will be out. Kyle Smoke, a little slot receiver who's very productive, broke his ankle. I learned yesterday. So. Thompson's down one weapon, so I think Hewitt has the opportunity to get out to another lead in this game. But how does the ball will be in Talia's hands late, I believe, with the game on the line, and the power of his arm, I think, will be showcased at some point, and that could be the deciding factor. That and his legs were the deciding factor last time. And I find it hard to believe that it will be easier for that Hewitt defense to deal with him because maybe they didn't plan for the run as much last game. In fact, I know they didn't. So now when you play a rematch just 3, 4, 5 weeks later, now your front seven guys for Hewitt, now they're thinking, oh, this kid can take off now. Like this kid has more running ability than we saw last year. And now that's kind of in the back of your mind. So now those guys maybe play a little bit more up, which means I expect a little bit more passing from Talia, which is why I think his arm and the strength in his arm, his right arm, will be really the deciding factor in this game, especially if the cold, windy conditions remain late in it. So it'll be interesting with the receiving core, which is all new from this year compared to last year, and now the most consistent guy is out. So I think some young guys got to step up. Keep an eye on Trey Roberson. He's a taller 6'2", 6'3", sophomore wide receiver. Came over from Homewood High School. He's already got an Arkansas offer. He's an SEC body already. I think this could be kind of a big breakout for him if Thompson is to beat Hewitt Trustful again, which is kind of the expectation, I think. That's what we predicted for the first game, and I just think that Talia as a dual threat is at this level is a little bit too much to handle. So I think his arm and his legs will be a lot to deal with. But we all know Hewitt can score, so even with the cold conditions, I'm expecting a 3+ hour game, which means I got to go to Walmart and buy some gloves.
Oh man, well that should be a good one for you tonight.
Oh yeah, Bama fans, I'll probably ask him if he's solid with the commitment, in case you're wondering about that.
Yeah, obviously that would be a good thing to ask. Supposedly he is, and so we'll see where that goes.
He's never not been, but
yeah,
Twitter and message boards and all that crap.
People like to get stuff out there and get people riled up, which is always a good thing for some people. So we finally have some activity. Well, I guess we should probably quickly preview the opponent for this week.
That's all you, brother.
Before we get into the
I'm gonna take a nap.
Before we get into the live chat, which we finally have some action in the live chat. We were kind of dead there for a while, even though we had a lot of viewers. So this week they play the Citadel. Charles.
Hygienese.
Yeah, Hygienese is going to be the theme for the defense, especially the defensive linemen. They run a pretty traditional triple option offense. I watched a lot of film on them this morning, preparing. Even though we weren't going to do a lot of Citadel talk anyway, but they do run the traditional wing triple option. They look a lot like Army Navy type deal. They're 4-5. They're on a 2-game win streak in their conference play. They beat Samford and they beat Chattanooga maybe, and so you're going to get a heavy dose of Lorenzo Ward. He's their 5'2", 210-pound running back.
5'2"?
No, 5'10".
Oh, that would have been funny.
No, 5'10". He's a pretty thick cat. As a team, they've amassed 2,700, over 27, almost 2,800 rushing yards on the season, as well as almost 1,000 yards passing. So they can throw the ball as well when they need to. The one thing that you're going to look at is the undersize of both of their offensive and defensive lines. They run a 3-man front on defense, and their defensive line is 6'2", 228, 6'2", 280, and 6'2", 255. So
it's a 228.
228, one of the one defensive end.
I mean, I probably shouldn't outweigh. Never mind.
Yeah, you shouldn't outweigh one of their defensive ends.
Like I shouldn't anyway, but I definitely shouldn't here.
Yeah. And then their offensive line averages 6'1.5", but they're 6'2", 6'1", 6'3", 6'1", and 6'3", and none of them break the 300-pound mark.
So you're saying there's going to be a lot of running in this game.
It's going to be a lot of cut blocking and a lot of running.
Someone should ask Nick Saban if he'll sit Tua. Man, he's been on some – man, he's just been weird. He's been funny this year to me. He's just
he's definitely
Nick Saban don't have the internet? Like, come on, man.
He's
like,
been on
are we really believing that? I mean, Bama fans are gullible, but are they that gullible?
I know.
This man doesn't see the internet? Come on, man. Come on.
Like, that's where we are in 2018 right now. We're
he's at the dinner table like, Miss Terry, what is the internet saying?
So, yeah, like, what did they say about me today? Like, come on, bro. Like, let's be honest. And so he's definitely been on some stuff this year. I definitely am. I've enjoyed the entertainment that has come along with Nick Saban this year. So obviously he said, "Oh, why would I say Tua? It's that would show whatever." So we're obviously gonna see Tua. We saw him without a knee brace yesterday at practice.
I don't know why people made a big deal about that either.
I don't either. I posted it because I thought it would get a reaction, and so
the director of social media for CABC, ladies and gentlemen, Kevin Roberts.
So yeah, we it's gonna be ball control for the Bulldogs. They're gonna try to keep the ball away from Alabama and their offense, obviously with the run game, but with the size of the offensive line, I don't really don't see that going well. I think that so my prediction when we did it was, I think that the Citadel actually scores in this game, because I don't think that, and we're hard on everybody, but this is going to be very matchup. Make sure you do your assignment football this week for the Alabama defense. And we all know that the Alabama linebackers have struggled with their assignments this year. Early on in the year, they've gotten better as it's gone on, but with the misdirection and the having to play your assignment football against the triple option, I think at some point Citadel gets into the end zone with a blown assignment by somebody.
Well, and the thing is that you expect the second unit to be in there too. So how experienced after can that second unit be sleep-worthy offense that the team will face? This is all about eye discipline, gap integrity, and not being fooled. And it's just natural, man. It's just natural to be fooled at some point, and that usually for a triple option offense means a big bust. It's a big 75-yard touchdown of some sorts. Doesn't mean it'll come early, but you expect it to come. They've lost games, but not because they haven't scored.
Exactly.
Their defense isn't very good, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So I think you do expect some points here. But the $1 million question, Kevin, I know Crimson and BlueChips.com will have the picks from you and Dave and me and the crew. Are they going to cover?
It's a 51.5-point spread. And
never seen that, by the way.
I couldn't do it. I couldn't. I said they covered last week, and they covered with that spread, and I wasn't even 100% on taking that spread. But I can't take a 51.5-point spread against a triple option offense team that is going to hold the ball, is going to try to hold the ball for as long as they can. And we don't know how much we're going to see of Tua. We don't know how much he's going to play. Obviously, he's going to play, but he's like, how much is he going to play? And then obviously the next question on that would be who comes in after Tua leaves the game. And from film and stuff that I've seen circulating on social media, that's got to be Mac Jones, because Jalen is still walking and moving very tenderly on that ankle. So I think that with the ball control offense of the Citadel, I think that they're going to get into the end zone. They're going to hold the ball for long periods of time. So I don't think that Alabama scores, or Alabama is able to cover a 51.5-point spread. There's a lot of big spreads this weekend. our picks were like we had to pick against a lot of big spreads. 51.
Cupcake Saturday.
Like we picked. There's a 51.5 point spread. There's multiple 40-point spreads that we picked. There's a lot of big spreads we picked against this week, and I'm really nervous about a lot of them. So
I feel like Vegas threw they have a dartboard for the Alabama spread, and when they're playing an FCS opponent, it just starts at 40, and it just goes like there's like a ring of 20, and they just throw it, and they're like, oh, it's 51.
51. That sounds right.
Write it in because, 50. Isn't it 51.5?
51.5.
Like 51 in the hook, man. So Bama's supposed to win this game, in Vegas' opinion, by 7 touchdowns and a field goal.
Yes.
They're supposed to be 8 near perfect possessions better than a ball control team.
No.
It's possible if they wanted to. That's the other thing. They don't want to. Nick has made a big deal about not sitting Tua. That man's going to play like 3 series and be done.
Yeah, and then we're going to see Mac Jones and
Mac 10's going to throw a pick because he don't care.
No, Mac Jones a gunslinger, son. I love let's ride. I'm ready to see some long quality Mac Jones play.
Mac Jones is gonna be 20 of 31 for 211 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. Write it down.
Point sealed and delivered. Like I'm ready to see some quality Mac Jones play in this game. And I said it on my whenever we post it on Crimson and Blue Chips for our picks. I said, be prepared to see a lot of key reserves in this game.
What's that website, homie?
CrimsonandBlueChips.com.
Okay.
So I said you're going to see a lot of key reserves in this game. I would bank on seeing a lot of Mac Jones. I would bank on seeing a lot of the different offensive linemen, whether it's Casher, Lashley, Matt Womack.
Matt Womack in there.
Yeah, you're going to see a lot of those guys. I would probably say you're going to see Lester Cotton start with Deontay Brown dealing with turf toe. So you'll see Lester and you'll see the rest of those guys. And then, be prepared to see some Miller Forstall, some Derek Keefe, some Brian Robinson. You're going to see a lot of these guys.
Brian Robinson, 100 yards.
100 yards, Brian Robinson. You heard it, John.
9 carries, 107.
107. All right, I'm writing this down because that's a very specific. 9 carries, 100. Would you say 109?
107.
107. 9 carries.
And I don't remember what I said about Mac Jones, but you can rewind it later.
107 for Brian Robinson. All right, there we go. So Brian Robinson, I think gets a good amount of carries in this game. And then on defense, I expect to see some of those guys in there.
Don't do it.
You might.
Don't you do. I will end this podcast right now. Don't you do it.
Bro, I wasn't going there.
I've been in Alabama since Monday, and I've gotten in-person questions on this man too much this week. We're not doing it.
Bro, I wasn't going to do it. I promise. I wasn't going there.
I saw your eyes light up. Those beautiful eyes. I saw it.
I wasn't going there. But on defense, expect to see a lot of different guys, maybe even some Ali Cajo.
Oh, my God.
What? You said I know where you were talking about not going.
Yes, play Ale Cajo and Moody.
I'm not going there. You're going to see a lot of Moody. You'll probably see a lot of the guys up front like Johnny Dwight, Anoma, LeBrian Ray, Ben Davis. Ben Davis. And so,
I'm about to curse at you.
Yeah, you're going to see a lot of the key reserves for Alabama. So
Hoodie Garcia is coming out, bro.
Hoodie Garcia. So, yeah, that's my take on Citadel.
LeBrian Ray will be the leading tackler, by the way.
LeBrian Ray leading tackler. LeBrian Ray leading tackler. All right. And so, yeah, the 51.5 point spread, I don't see it happening. And, yeah, so we'll move into some of the chat on the live chat here. How good is Deion Zipper, and will Bama land him?
Keon Zipper is visiting this weekend. He's a troll. Bama's not going. He's going to Florida or Miami.
All right.
The Irv Smith thing is piquing his interest, and he has talked about leaving the state, but I think he's trolling. So
yeah. All right. Does Pickens even make it into school? Question mark.
Yes.
Yes.
Like, this is man. Like, I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but yes, I think he makes it. I think he figures it out.
They got BJ Emmons in the school. They can get. Let's see. Will Bama offer Javarius Johnson, who made a big bump in the rankings? Got a
Yeah, long overdue there for us. Big fan of this kid. He is tiny. I mean, he is smaller than Devontae Smith, but he is just as fast. Legitimate 4.4 speed, and I think the first notion with him was, oh, he's a little slot guy. Like, that's cool. But then he showed that 4.4 speed. He's not just quicker than fast. He is quick and fast. But then the next notion is, okay, well, he's a downfield threat. Well, watch his game, man. He comes out of his breaks extremely well, catches everything away from his body. He could use more polish in the routes, but the body control, the hands are also there. So in this day and age, that kid is a thriver, no matter where he goes. We'll see if Bama offers. I think the receiver conversation has been very simple. We've seen no movement or traction with Bama and Jaden Hazelwood. We just talked about Pickens, and that's kind of it at receiver. So if there is another level to be hit, I think Javarius Johnson could be in the conversation. He's been to Bama several times. He plays for Hewitt, so probably, he's the only non-Bama commit at the SEC level they got right now. So I could see that changing one day if Alabama offers. But again, I think the numbers are tight here. The numbers are tight. So we'll see. If I'm Auburn, I'm sure I would want him to sign next month. I mean, if I'm Auburn, I try to get Pickens to sign next month too. But I think they will try for sure to get Javarius Johnson to sign next month, and I think that'll be tough on the kid. That'll be tough on the kid because everybody has seen his rise this year, and the playoffs are here. And then the Alabama Mississippi week is here, and we've seen kids blow up at this point, and he has that potential. I'm actually surprised he hasn't received more offers at this point, but I do think that he will have additional options. So that'll be a tough one, but I could see Bama offering in a certain scenario, but I would probably lean towards no if I had to make the call, just because of the numbers, not because of the kid's ability.
Yeah, I mean, we've all seen him blow up recently. I mean, he had an amazing game in their nationally televised game the first time with Thompson.
Like, he might break the record tomorrow. He might break the state receiving record. Like, this man has like 250 more yards than Julio's best year at Foley. Like, just think about that.
That's impressive.
And he plays with another SEC receiver in Zaylen Worsham.
Yeah. So, all right.
And running back and Armani Goodwin.
Yeah. So I mean, he's sharing the ball with some pretty good cats. Where will linebacker Keyshawn Brown commit?
Man, I'm a big fan of his. I've been talking to his camp a lot this week. It's not going to be Bama, I don't think. It could be Auburn, but there's been a slow play here. I mean, he's a kid who hasn't taken a lot of visits, and he was a safety. So there's a lot of schools that still view him as a safety, but he's 225 pounds. I mean, he's going to be an inside linebacker at the next level. And he had a great senior year. It actually ended on Friday, but that defense is one of the best in the state, and he was the main reason why. I went to go see him a few weeks ago, and I was just shocked that more schools weren't beating down the doors for the kid. When I went to go see him, it looked like he would end up at Louisville, which at this point, who knows who's going to end up at Louisville? Who knows if that kid is even on the new board with the Cardinals? But I just get the feeling that he's going to be that late kid in the state of Alabama who waits beyond the December signing day and gets a couple big offers late. SEC, Big Ten, I could see coming in on him. I think Michigan is gaining interest. Penn State as well. So if I'm Auburn, if I'm Mississippi State, if I'm Kentucky, if I'm Florida, I'm trying to snag this kid and keep him in the Southeast because he is an SEC talent. I mean, the guy who trains him, who also trained Mac Wilson and Sean Dion Hamilton, all three were Carver Wolverines. He said athletically he's in between Sean Dion and Mac Wilson. So you think of that, you think of 6'1", 225, plays very well in space, playing out of position at the high school level, and he has all the makings of a sleeper. So I'd go all in on Keyshawn Brown if I'm an SEC school not named Alabama. And even if I'm Alabama, if you miss on Dean and somehow To'o, I would bring him in as the final piece of the linebacker class. I think he's that good.
All right. Do you feel that Alabama has a shot with Bogle? Do you think what do you think Trey Sanders will do? And also, what about Nolan Smith? Thanks.
Nolan Smith, holla at me after the Iron Bowl. If he makes that visit and it isn't official like it is scheduled to be, I think we'll talk a little bit more. But right now, I think like I've always thought, I think he's probably going to Georgia, where he was again on Saturday, and he continues to recruit for the Bulldogs. Chris Bogle, there's momentum there. Depending on who you talk to in Tuscaloosa, between the South Florida kids who visited last weekend, Bogle and Battle, which a lot of people have been confusing, by the way. Some people will tell you they feel better about Battle. Some people will tell you they feel better about Bogle. I'm a little bit more in the Battle camp because Bogle has had so many schools in it. You guys know how I feel about kids that have 5, 6, 7 schools in it. I'm typically slower to make a call on those guys, and Bogle loves Tennessee. Miami is all over the kid. Florida is getting a late visit. He just visited Alabama. A&M visited it and apparently knocked it out of the park. So I'm just a little slower with kids like that, and I believe he's got a couple other trips on deck. So I'm not ready there with Bogle. I would be a little more confident in Battle simply because it's a 2-team race, like we talked about earlier. So Bogle's another one of these edge guys in the mix, though. Thibodeau, Smith, Bogle. I mean, there's a lot of edge players still on the board for Alabama. I think they'd benefit to get any one of those guys, but I also think other positions are higher on the priority level, like inside linebacker, defensive tackle, maybe even running back. So I think you can be with or without an edge rusher the rest of the way. It'd probably be okay.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. Is the Trustful Thompson game on TV? Don't know.
Don't know, but just
Trustful
go.
has Husky Fast Network.
Yeah, and so does Thompson. So just
Thompson has one too.
they both have free apps, I believe, where you can watch it. I watch a lot of Hewitt games on their app when I'm at whatever game I'm at. Just go to at Husky Fast Network on Twitter. And they have a free app in the Apple App Store. I mean, that's how sophisticated things have become. So you can watch that game. They've got replays. It's actually a really good setup. I'm a big fan of the Husky Fast Network, and those are good dudes too. Known them for several years. Good dudes, good broadcasters. A little homerish, but it's cool.
It is what it is. Who does Bama finish with on the D line? We talked a lot about it earlier. Yeah,
the conversation there, but I think that's where it starts, and then after that, then you get into the potential Pickering and Ika and Leal and these other guys. And I think what's crazy is that Bama feels like they're number 1 or 2 for Sopsher, Ika, Pickering, Leal. It's Robinson. It's crazy how many guys Bama is in it with on the defensive interior. This is not even getting into those edge guys who Bama's probably no less than second with, certainly for Nolan Smith and maybe Thibodeau. But on the interior, there's a lot of guys for maybe one spot. So the conversation begins with Sopsher, and there's a lot of momentum there for Alabama with Sopsher. So that's where I'm going. That's where I'm going with it. I might have even crystal balled that. I don't remember.
Do you see Dent sticking with FSU or flipping?
That too could depend on Alabama. Akeem Dent is a 5-star and a very good cornerback. But I think Alabama's, it seems like late, they're looking for defensive backs. Pola Gates, Battle, even Dent. All these guys are corner safety combo types. I don't think there's any pure corners beyond Jeff Carter, Marcus Banks that they're in on. And just like we said with D-line, I think there's maybe one spot for those guys. So just the odds say that Dent's probably not going to occupy that spot. I think he's taking a visit to Bama. Don't think it was an official. So that's another one of those, since he's committed elsewhere. When guys are committed elsewhere, like, let me know when they take that official. Like, that's when things can turn up and really, really get interesting with Alabama and a potential flip, especially as we get closer to December. So I think I'm kind of in that boat with Akeem Dent.
All right. So we got one more and then we'll wrap up. Who does Henry To'oTo'o remind you of?
Oh, that's a good question. Shout out to DJ is asking some good questions. Shout out to Sense of Tumor. Shout out to William Lee, probably our most consistent viewer on here. We really appreciate these live questions. That's kind of we've evolved to that, so that's really cool, and we really appreciate you guys and gals for doing so. Especially since we don't announce these live shows, we just kind of record. So that's cool and very humbling. But Toto, I think he's not really like anybody Bama has signed recently at inside linebacker. He's an athlete, first of all, pretty good
Yes.
running back in high school, but you could tell that he's more at home and more comfortable as a legitimate linebacker. I think he's an inside outside guy. He's not quite a Mac Wilson athletically, but I mean, not many of us are. But he's also not a classic inside backer. He's not a Jalen Moody or Sean Dion Hamilton, who Alabama has signed in the last few years. So I think he's somewhere there in between. I haven't watched a ton of him since his high school game that was on television. What was that, Kev, in September?
Yeah.
Probably need to cycle back and get an updated look, but I do like his ability both inside and out, and I think that's kind of a bare minimum thing in what Alabama's looking for, and that's why there's not a lot of inside linebackers that Alabama's in on. So I don't think he compares to any one guy, maybe a Keith Holcomb type. I know that's not a popular name for Alabama fans since he basically quit the football team, but body-wise, length, playing inside and out, I see some Keith Holcomb there. Maybe a little bit more explosive than Keith and a little bit more filled out because he's not playing baseball than Keith at the same stage. So how about a more explosive Keith Holcomb? And if you don't like that, I apologize, but I really was a big fan of Keith Holcomb coming out of high school. Watched him play a bunch in Tuscaloosa, and I thought he underperformed a little bit at Alabama, but obviously we didn't get the full 4 years in watching him at that level.
Yeah, and with Toa, just stay tuned because we have me and Dave were talking about it, and he's going to be one of our next that we do on our eval show. If you guys
Tell him more about it.
Yeah, so if you guys haven't checked it out already, me and Dave we started an eval show. Our first one actually launched today. You can check it out at crimsonandbluechips.com. We did the ever popular Antonio Alfano, since he got his recent boost in the rankings. He's up to the 8th player in the country and a 5-star now. So you can check that out, crimsonandbluechips.com. You can check it out on YouTube. We're going to be doing more. If you guys have anybody that you want us to do, you can DM us and let us know who you would like to see evaluations on. We have a couple more that we've already done that we're going to post soon. And Toa is definitely he's on our list. I told that to Dave that I definitely wanted to do that because he's very intriguing to me as far as like being the West Coast linebacker and coming south. He wants to come south to play, whether it's Bama or he stays out west. So once again, check out the website. Lots of good stuff coming there. Definitely expanding on the website. We got some college basketball action on the website for any of you that like college basketball. Still mainly football, but we have some NBA stuff. We have a bunch of stuff going on there. We're expanding that rapidly as we speak. Also, if you haven't already, subscribe, hit the bell notification so you get notifications for when we come live, since we are really bad about announcing it. We're going to try to get better at that and start planning some live stuff so you guys can join us. And then hit the bell notification so you get that. Follow us on social medias at Crimson and Blue Chips on Facebook, at CABC Pod on Twitter and Instagram, and crimsonandbluechips.com. Oh, hey, look who showed up into the bottom down here. But so yeah.
More questions?
Any more? Oh well, we got a couple. Yeah, couple late coming in there.
Get through those.
Who does Keelan Robinson remind you of?
Keelan Robinson, of course, the forgotten man, the Alabama running back commit. I know We talk a lot about these other guys, Glass, Sanders, Williams. But yeah, Keelan Robinson is verbally committed, so he's got that over everybody else. He's a scat back. He's a space guy. He's the new age type that Alabama's looking for to complement the conventional running back that we've seen. He's a kid who has embraced the new age of ball. Been a little banged up as a senior, but just a space guy. Just a guy who can get to top speed in a hurry, comfortable in the passing game, comfortable out in the open field, can set up a defender as a receiver, but he can run the ball as well. I think when somebody is called a scat back, it doesn't mean that is the only thing they can do. It just means that is their strength. So Kenyon Drake, by some, was considered a scat back. Didn't mean that's all he could do. He could certainly run in between the tackles. He was just most at home, most comfortable in space. So with Keelan, I think he's a guy who probably redshirts, fills out his frame a little bit more, and is a little bit more suited to be a balanced running back. But there's no doubt that he's got some of these third down traits you look for. Watch the NFL, right? Your James Whites with the Patriots, Alvin Kamara with the Saints. You need running backs who can play comfortably out of the backfield. They're basically wide receivers in the backfield. Keelan Robinson has some of those traits at this point. So he's a nice change of pace from what Alabama has targeted in the past. And if you pair him with a big running back, you can see that as kind of a classic Alabama backfield. Think of Trey Sanders as your first and second down guy, and then Keelan Robinson comes in for third and long. It's not that simple, and they both can do what the other is best at, but just conventionally speaking, that's kind of the difference between those guys.
And has
Keelan Robinson is a poor man James White. Sorry.
Okay.
That's the question. So
has Stephon White been redshirted? Win.
I believe so. At this point, he's coming off of an injury. It's one thing with the 4-game rule to get kids' feet wet, but I think when an injury is mixed in, so guys like him, Jalen Armour-Davis, etc., I just think you got to take that conventional redshirt. It's just about getting them back to full strength and full comfort, which are two different things. So I think you take a traditional redshirt there. But again, he can practice. He can get back for the bowl practices, things like that. You can see him kind of ramping up to full strength, but I don't expect him to see the field at this point, mainly because beyond Saturday, these games are all pretty hard and damn important. So you just don't expect him to get on the field. But he was one that I thought could have made an impact this year should he have stayed healthy, but obviously he didn't. He got hurt like the first day of practice, so casualty of war.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that'll wrap it up for the rest of it.
All right. Well, thank you to everybody who participated. And again, like Kev said, subscribe on YouTube. This is kind of the primary source of where our show. Of course, they go to soundtips.com and Bama Online and all these other places, but YouTube is the first order of business. So if you want to know when we're recording, if you want to get those notifications, hit the bell, and we'll be there for you, and you won't miss anything as it happens. I know some people have asked, hey, we keep missing the window. There is no set window, at least at this point. Like Kev said, we're going to get better at that, but we do appreciate the following, the participation, because we do it for you guys. We are an extension of you, so we're always open to feedback, suggestions, etc. So keep that coming as much as possible. But that'll do it for today and this week on Crimson and Blue Chips. Not sure if we'll go live Saturday, but we might. So stay tuned there. Again, CABC Pod on Twitter is your best spot for the up-to-date information. So hit us there. We're very responsive. We've got a big team there led by producer Kev, and he's got a bigger team at crimsonandbluechips.com. So any way you want to get in contact is available there. So thanks for hanging out. God bless everybody. Garcia, Kev, and the crew out.